This presentation provides an overview of proposed amendments to the city's general plan to establish a new policy and new thresholds of significance pertaining to the way the city will evaluate transportation impacts under the California Environmental Quality Act. I'm Bill Roth with the Planning Division, and I would like to acknowledge and thank the team that has been instrumental in getting us to this point. Noe Veloso, Matt Bonberg, and Alex Zabishny with Public Works and Transportation Engineering, Waylon Lee with Planning, and Megan Weir and Brian Mansford with Nelson Nygaard, our consultant, who has done very high quality work. They benefit from Nelson Nygaard's experiences in helping Oakland and other cities with similar transitions in the last several years. Funding for Nelson Nygaard's work with the city was provided through a generous grant from the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. We thank them for that and their assistance throughout this process. Tonight's presentation will cover key terms, Senate Bill 743, answer the question, why vehicle miles traveled, discuss proposed general plan policy and significance thresholds, and go over next steps and implementation. Firstly, here are a few key terms used in the presentation. The California Environmental Quality Act generally requires state and local government agencies to inform decision makers and the public about the potential environmental impacts of proposed projects and reduce those environmental impacts to the extent feasible. The CEQA guidelines are the administrative regulations governing the implementation of CEQA. Level of service, or LOS. This is a measurement of vehicle delay at intersections, and it's expressed with a letter grade from A to F, or least delay to most delay. Under the LOS-based measurement system, a city could improve level of service simply by widening a road. While wider roads might temporarily decrease automobile delay, this approach does not ultimately decrease greenhouse gas pollution. And the state's greenhouse gas emissions reduction goals are really key drivers in this transition under CEQA that we are now discussing. Vehicle miles traveled, or VMT. This is a measurement of the number of vehicle miles traveled by motor vehicles that are generated by or attracted to a project. Methods for decreasing VMT include providing transportation alternatives, parking reduction, developing in a way that increases transportation efficiencies, and focusing on infill development. The General Plan Transportation Analysis Policy. This is the policy in the General Plan's mobility element that establishes the thresholds for transportation impacts under CEQA. The new proposed policy would also provide a structure for the way staff will evaluate a project's effect on local transportation, with consideration of safety, access, and outside of CEQA, level of service. Finally, we have thresholds of significance. CEQA thresholds of significance are an identifiable measurement of performance. Non-compliance with a threshold means the project's effect will need to be mitigated somehow to ensure that the project's environmental effect is less than significant. Now, the next slide. Senate Bill 743 was approved by the governor in 2013, and it requires a shift from level of service to a new method of measurement that meets the statutory requirements of promoting the reduction of GHG emissions, the development of multimodal transportation networks, such as complete streets, and a diversity of land uses. The intent is to streamline CEQA review, to facilitate residential, commercial, and mixed-use infill projects that reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and to focus CEQA transportation mitigation on pedestrian, bicycle, and transit facilities, as well as parking reduction and transportation demand management. Well, Senate Bill 743 does not preclude the use of level of service for operational analysis. LOS may no longer be used as a method for evaluating a project's transportation impacts under CEQA. Instead, the new method for measuring those impacts is VMT. So why vehicle miles traveled? Well, following the adoption of SB 743, a great deal of research by the State Office of Planning and Research and the California Air Resources Board, among others, identified VMT as the best measure for transportation impacts under CEQA, as it best supports the achievement of the state's GHG reduction goals. San Jose, San Francisco, Oakland, and Pasadena were all early adopters of VMT-based transportation analysis. And we, like many other cities, benefit from those examples. VMT meets the statutory criteria promoting the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, the development of multimodal transportation networks, and a diversity of land uses. VMT is already used to analyze the project's transportation-related GHG emissions, so its use in transportation impact analysis will support a more streamlined approach. Finally, beginning July 1st, 2020, the only acceptable ways of determining the significance of transportation impacts under CEQA are the methods listed in CEQA Guidelines section 15064.3, which identifies vehicle miles traveled as the most appropriate measure of transportation impacts. With the item before you, staff is proposing text amendments to the mobility element of the general plan to replace the city's current transportation analysis policy with one that was previously based on level of service with vehicle miles traveled as the new method to be used for transportation analysis under CEQA. Some of the new thresholds of significance that will be included in that policy are listed on this slide. These thresholds largely align with recommendations from the State Office of Planning and Research, or in the case of industrial thresholds, are already in use by other cities, such as San Jose. The residential uses threshold. The OPR technical advisory attached to the staff report recommends that the threshold of significance for residential uses be defined as 15% below current average, but leaves discretion as to whether this threshold should be city average or regional average. The staff proposed threshold for Fremont is the city average because it is higher than the regional average and therefore identifies a wider geographic range within Fremont that would fall below the threshold of significance. This supports the land use vision in the general plan, which identifies opportunities to focus new development around transit stations and in the 5 town centers, where historic land use patterns may support mixed use and more residential density, but the existing VMT is not low compared to the rest of the region. Next, the threshold of significance for industrial land use has been defined differently by some lead agencies, such as the City of San Jose. VMT, as defined in OPR's advisory, refers to on-road passenger vehicles, specifically cars and light trucks. Heavy-duty trucks, such as those often associated with industrial uses, are not included as part of VMT analysis. Additionally, industrial land uses are the least compatible with mixed-use walkable neighborhoods, and industrial uses are generally located in areas without high-frequency transit service, though the city's Warm Springs area is one that benefits from the BART station there. Transportation projects. The OPR technical advisory states that transportation projects that would not likely lead to a substantial or measurable increase in vehicle travel may be presumed to have no significant impact. The foreseeable projects in Fremont, as captured in city, county, and regional long-range planning documents, are all multimodal in nature, focused on safety or operational improvements, or they'll have their environmental documentation completed by an outside agency. So staff does not recommend adopting a threshold of significance for transportation projects. And next we have other land uses. It's not actually listed in this table, but the point here is that thresholds in this table are the ones being adopted in the policy, won't necessarily cover all projects. So in a process that's outlined in the TIA handbook, discussed later in this presentation, staff will, on a project-by-project basis, determine how to evaluate these other land uses that aren't defined, at least until additional guidance can be provided by the Office of Planning and Research, and as would be subject to the discretion of the Director of Public Works. Other land uses would typically be analyzed based on similar types of land uses that have defined thresholds. For example, a hospital could be analyzed as an employment center using VMT per employee, as a service population, looking where the patients are coming from, maybe with a combination of using retail VMT or total VMT or a combination. The proposed transportation analysis policy discusses the preparation of a transportation impact analysis handbook, or TIA handbook for short, which is a toolbook for the staff that evaluates a project's effect on transportation. A working draft is attached to the staff report as an informational item. The TIA handbook is an administrative document that transportation engineering staff will update and maintain with input from planning and other divisions to ensure that the city's process conforms to the transportation analysis policy, the CEQA guidelines, best practices, and to make sure that we address Fremont's unique setting and layout as the city develops over time. The TIA handbook provides the tools and methods of transportation analysis, including screening sizes used to filter out smaller projects from the need to do further transportation analysis under CEQA. As an example of screening sizes, a local serving retail use up to 50,000 square feet or a 25-unit multifamily project are considered small enough projects that would fall below the screens recommended by the State Office of Planning and Research. Such projects have been determined to have a less than significant effect on VMT and wouldn't require further analysis under CEQA. Another key part of the TIA handbook are the VMT-based heat maps that show areas in Fremont that have a high or low amount of VMT. Planners, engineers, and developers will use those maps to determine whether a project is in a high or a low VMT area. A VMT calculator and other tools would also be used, and they are discussed in the TIA handbook. The TIA handbook will also describe local transportation analysis. In other words, the analysis of safety, access, and the role of level of service analysis outside of CEQA. And it will provide a list of standardized mitigation measures, such as parking reduction and methods of demand management, that would be used when mitigation is necessary to reduce a project's VMT impact. In wrapping up the presentation, staff recommends that the proposed general plan amendments to replace the city's transportation analysis policy be approved. The team of staff and consultants from Nelson Nygaard are available to discuss and answer any questions. Thank you.